Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. It is an important topic that we're discussing today. It's finding mindfulness in stressful times. My name is Ymca and I will be a moderator for the next hour. The strain of the pandemic, physical distancing, lost jobs, and the question on when will life return to normal has left its mark. Earlier this month, a report tracking mental health in Canada during the pandemic has scored Canadians' mental health in the negatives for 11th straight month. The extreme isolation and loneliness is having a direct impact on Canadians' well-being. The report found that 37% of respondents also fear telling their friends or family members about their mental well-being, worrying that they would be treated differently. It's evident that while individuals may not reveal they're struggling with their mental health, many are struggling in silence. Stress is rising and anxiety is spiking. Finding a work-life balance is more challenging than ever, but it is necessary. Today, we will talk about accessible solutions to find mindfulness and presence in any space at any time, and even during these very stressful times. In this webinar, we will cover what is mindfulness, what are the scientific benefits of mindfulness, how can I and you practice mindfulness at home and work, and daily tips and tricks about mindfulness. This Lunch and Learn has been made possible because of partnerships. One such incredible partner is the Ymca Employment and Immigrant Services of Niagara. When everyone has access to meaningful job opportunities, Niagara benefits in many ways. The Ymca Employment Services responds to the needs of unemployed and underemployed individuals, while at the same time assisting employers finding the workforce that they need. By working together to connect people with opportunities, they're giving more Canadians a chance to succeed. Our thanks to Ymca Employment Services for making today's important dialogue possible. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Lauren Hundred, the owner of Soulshine Wellness, a local company that brings a suite of wellness programs into the workplace, encouraging health for individuals and by extension, the health of the workplace as a whole. She's also a certified yoga instructor and a meditation and Reiki practitioner. Lauren, thank you for being with us this morning. And just to let everyone know about the format, I'm going to pass the mic and the screen over to Lauren for about the next 30 to 35 minutes for a presentation that hopefully will address many of the questions that you as attendees have and I personally have too. After that, we will have an engaged question and answer session, hopefully getting to all the questions that you have. And on that note, Lauren, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ymca. Thank you to the GNCC. Thank you to the Ymca. And thank you to all of you for making the time to be here today. Whether you're catching this live or later on, I acknowledge you for anything that you had to shift around or make happen to be able to be here today to make time for yourself and make time for this presentation. So I will begin sharing my screen here with you so that we can get right into it. Practice makes peace. Finding mindfulness in stressful times. As Ymca mentioned, it is an incredibly stressful time. It is an unprecedented time. And so the goal of this presentation is to provide you with some tools that you can use in real time at any time so that you can access a sense of peace. So Ymca already mentioned as well as some of the things that we'll be touching on today. So about Soulshine Wellness, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and what we do, and then we'll get right into it, right? What is mindfulness? Why should I practice it? What are the mental health benefits of creating a mindfulness practice? And then how in particular can you do it? Like what are some of the strategies that you can put in so that you can have this practice in your life? We'll also move into some movement and mindfulness and how that works in the body. We'll talk about setting intentions, and then we'll end with some tips and tricks for mindfulness that you can take with you, and then we'll move into the question and answer period as well. So about social wellness, what we do, Mishka mentioned too, right? Like finding a work-life balance is incredibly difficult. It was difficult before, and then throw a pandemic into the mix and it makes it even more difficult. And employee well-being is something that companies are finding is becoming more and more of a priority, with people being all over the place, some people being currently laid off, some people working from home, some people having kids at home with them when they're trying to work, other people in the office, right? There's so many different angles. And we find that companies that have wellness programs in place find that there's a lot more engagement and a lot more connection with their employees. So that's what we help to do. We help to work with you to create a program for you. So I deliver some of the programs myself, and then I also work with a whole bunch of other people in the health and wellness industry. So we do everything from yoga presentations to presentations like this, to nutrition, all sorts of different things. And so we connect virtually with you and your staff. All right, so what is mindfulness? And one of the first things that you might notice on the slide is the second word is italicized, and that is important. So it is the practice of bringing your attention to the present moment without any judgment or emotional investment, right? It's about being observant rather than reactionary in your life. And there are subtle ways that our bodies will comfort and support us and even heal us. So at any given moment, and particularly in moments when there's stress, practicing mindfulness can help bring a sense of calm, both to your body and to your mind. And I say that it is a practice because, like anything that's new, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, right? And flexing that new muscle takes some time. It takes some time to cultivate, and it takes some time to understand what is going to work for you. So give yourself some grace with that. And there are 3 ways that we take the steps to develop a mindfulness practice. And the first step is get comfortable. The second one is to become still. So try to calm down your body, calm down your breath, and then find one single point of focus. So with all of the different activities that we're going to be exploring today, we'll start with those 3 steps with every single one. A couple of things to note as well. There can be sometimes this misconception that the goal of mindfulness is to experience nothing, right? Like for there to be this complete blank slate, your mind is completely clear, almost like if there was like mindfulness is like the Seinfeld of well-being, right? Like it's a practice about nothing. And it's true and not true, right? So first of all, that's a really high standard to hold yourself to, is that absolutely nothing will happen. But if you think about it, right, it's almost like on a continuum, right, where we have all these ideas, all these things that are going in our mind, and our minds are constantly in flux, right, like riding the highs, going down to the lows, all the way in between. And then a practice of mindfulness is not so much about nothing, but bringing things into a neutral baseline. So we can work with that moving forward. It's also important at this time too, I think, to have a brief conversation about some resistance that people have to the idea of mindfulness, right? Because we know that it's something that we should be practicing, right? We all know that that taking time to be still and to try to bring ourselves back into that level of neutrality is an important thing to do, but we struggle sometimes with how to do it. And some of the top concerns that I hear people say is that it's too time consuming, right? Like I don't have 20 or 30 minutes every single day to be able to make this a priority, right? You don't have to. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about today do not take, some of them take less than 5 minutes, right? They can be more, they can be less. So it doesn't have to look like any particular thing, right? It does not have to be, sometimes there's this idea that if it's not like 20 or 30 minutes, then it doesn't count. It absolutely does. You find something that works for you. Another point of resistance is that it is uncomfortable, right? Especially if you have that idea of someone sitting cross-legged, sitting up straight for 20 or 30 minutes. Again, it doesn't have to look any kind of way. If you're not comfortable sitting with your knees crossed or legs crossed, whatever, find something that does work for you. You can lay down. You can sit exactly as you are right now, just in your chair with your feet on the ground. That counts. Other people say it's impossible and it's not sustainable. How on earth do I stop my mind from racing, right? How am I supposed to have that expectation of being able to clear out my mind completely and do that every day consistently, day in and day out, right? So again, we're going to work with a lot of different tips here today, and you pick and choose, right? There's that litmus test that will happen, right? Where with anything, right? Someone will have some sort of suggestion of something that you might be able to do. And before they've even finished that sentence, you've already made up your mind, like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, right? Or something that, yes, I could see myself doing that. So think of this today as almost like a buffet of like a whole bunch of things, and then you pick and choose what ones work for you. If we look at an example, take a look around your space, right? Find one thing that you can set your gaze upon here. So for me, I use the example of my water bottle because I have it with me pretty much all the time. And so what you do with this one thing is you look at it with an observational mind rather than with an emotional mind, right? So I can look at something and I can create a whole story around this water bottle, right? Or I can look at it and just see what's actually there. Just look at the facts. So separate the facts of what is here in front of you versus the feelings or judgments or perceptions you have around the thing. So if I look at this water bottle, I can say it is green and gray and white. It's translucent. It's made of plastic and rubber at the top. It's about before when I wrote this, it was 3/4 full. Now it's 3/4 empty. Right? So look at the actual things that are right in front of you that have no emotional attachment. On the other hand, right, if I were to look at this and create a story, right, here's my water bottle. Well, it's not really my water bottle. It was a present for my daughter for her birthday. I didn't even give it to her. I just took it from her. And I don't even have any intention of giving it back. Maybe that's bad. Does that make me a bad person? Does that make me a bad mom? Right? And there can be this whole rabbit hole, right? That's what it's called, like that rabbit hole of going down this tunnel of judgment and perception and decision and emotion, right? Water bottle in and of itself means nothing, right? I attach a meaning to it and I can take that meaning away, right? Just by looking at what is actually here. So you can do that with anything in your space, right? If you were to take a look now around and see like your desk, your lamp, your plant, whatever it is, then you can put that into place. All right, so why mindfulness? Right, you can see even just from the example that we just covered, just how many things are going through our minds at a time. And that's when we're paying attention, right? Like that example is something where we are bringing our attention to the way that our minds just go on these tangents, right? They have these thoughts, these judgments, decisions, emotions, right? Especially in the times that we're living in now. Right, with all these other things that are going on with the pandemic, and we're worrying and we're planning and we're problem solving and daydreaming about when things get better and what we're going to do when things open back up, right? And then also on the other side of that is all these negative thoughts and fears and worries, right? And having, there's only so much space, right, that we can occupy with those thoughts. And when they accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, it can and often does contribute to anxiety, to stress. It can lead to depression. It's exhausting, right? If we just take a moment to try to like calm that stillness, right? To try to come back to that neutrality, it can make a huge difference. And practicing mindfulness is an immediate and effective way of being able to direct your attention to the here and now in the world around you, which is what we refer to as presence. So mental health and mindfulness, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of statistics out there because there are a lot of concerns out there, especially now with what's going on with people's mental health, both in the workplace and at home. In the workplace specifically, 61% of employees are feeling burnt out on the job. 60% of Canadians approximately are struggling with mental health issues as a direct result of the pandemic. And a recent study took place, and people who participated in the study, 88% of them had listed having at least one symptom of anxiety in the 2 weeks prior to filling out the survey. And the most common ones were feeling nervous, anxious, and on edge, becoming easily annoyed or irritable, and having trouble relaxing. So if we look at the key findings about, there's been a number of clinical trials that have gone on experimenting with mindfulness, and the overall evidence suggests that it helps significantly with stress, anxiety, right? And we can see a direct correlation between what people are feeling right now and the effects of mindfulness, right? Stress, anxiety, pain, depression, insomnia, high blood pressure, right? It can also help a lot with digestive issues too. And we've also noticed that has been shown to improve attention, to improve sleep, and that there's a decrease in job burnout. Right? So if the idea alone of like something that I know I should be doing isn't enough, then there might be a little Kickstarter in here for you as well. All right, so how can I practice it? Right now we know all the tools, we have some background information. How do we put this into place? So I've listed, I was going to say developed, I have not created these, right? But I have listed a number of different resources for you, and we can experience them together and go through them together so that you have an idea, of what they are, what they look like, and how to put them in place for you in a way that works and that resonates. And again, with all the things that I have listed here, there may be some that really resonate with you. There may be some that don't. That's fine, right? Pick and choose what works for you. So our first one here is called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. And it's about using your senses, again, to come back to center, to come back to this moment of presence and what is actually real and happening right now in a tangible way. So it starts, first of all, with getting a comfortable seat. Right, so rest your feet on the ground and take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. And come to stillness here, right? Just take a couple of breaths and allow this to be your point of focus. 5 things that you can see, right? Just quickly scanning around your space, right? For me, it's my computer, my desk. I've got a plant over here. The dog is down underneath here. I can see curtains in the background, right? Things that are real and true and tangible right here in real time. 4 things that you can touch. My feet are on the ground, right? I can feel what that feels like for my toes to be connected down onto the ground. I can feel my hair. My hair is resting on my shoulders. I can feel my water bottle. My hand was resting there. I can even feel my clothes against my body. 3 sounds. So right now I can hear my husband's on a call downstairs. I can hear that kind of ambient noise of him being on a call as well. I can hear the hum of my computer. And I can hear cars go by. 2 smells. This is the world we live in, right? I have a plant here, and there's also hand sanitizer. I feel like I can smell hand sanitizer almost anywhere now. I'm sure that you can relate. And then 1 thing that you can taste, right? So it could be mint, it could be coffee, it could be water. Right, just bring yourself into that grounding. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, take that time, take that space. And that in and of itself really didn't take very long, right? And breathing. Breath is so important. And it's funny too, because it's one of those things where we see it to kids all the time, right? When they're worked up about something, right? We'll say, oh my gosh, just take a breath. Everything's fine, take a breath. Right. And sometimes that we forget that that cue also can apply to us as well. Right. And so these kinds of things can be really, really helpful in moments of stress, right? If you're about to go into an interview, right? Or you're about to either execute a performance review, or you're about to receive your performance review, right? Anything that has you in a heightened space, right? Anything that makes you feel a little bit on edge, anytime that you just need that breather, right? Especially like feeling overwhelmed. Right? And there's natural cues that come from our body all the time. And one of those things is, right, if you get really overwhelmed, like something that we often do is just like take a sigh, right? Like that is a perfect time to implement something like this. So the way it works is, again, get comfortable. So set your feet on the ground. And we'll just start by taking a breath in. Always take a breath in, take a breath out. If you want to close your eyes, you can go ahead and do that as well. You can let your hands rest on your body. And we'll take a deep inhale through the nose to a count of 4. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and then hold here for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Open your mouth, make a whoosh sound to come out for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can repeat this like 4 times is usually the key. If you find that it's too long to breathe in that long, it's too long to hold it that long, and then the breath out takes too long for you, then you can do the same thing, the same kind of technique. Inhale for 2. So breathe in, 2, hold for 2.5, 2, 3.5 rather, and then a half, and then out for 4. 2, 3, 4. And part of what this intentional breathing does is that it cues up our parasympathetic nervous system, right? So often we operate in this this really heightened space, right? Our sympathetic nervous system. And that's sort of like the fight or flight mode, right? Whereas when we take intentional breath, right? Like we breathe in methodically and slowly and intentionally, and then hold, and then breathe out again, that triggers instead the parasympathetic nervous system, which is more about resting, relaxing, and restoring. Right, so it will change. It'll change the pace of your breath. It'll change the rhythms in your body. It'll change your heart rate. Right, so you can take that time, right, to come back, to slow yourself down. The body scan. Body scans are they're so great. They're so effective. So again, what we'll do for our body scan here is you can sit any way that's comfortable, right? We're all sitting probably in a chair, I'm assuming, right? So again, your feet are planted on the ground. Take a couple of breaths to bring yourself into this place of calm, right? And from here, to do your body scan, you're going to start at the bottom and work your way up to the top. So I have actually crafted a meditation for us. I'm not sure that we'll actually get time to do the whole thing, but if we do have time at the end, I can walk you through it. But in the meantime, I'll just do an overarching sort of explanation of what you can expect here. So again, our bodies send us cues all the time, right? About how things are feeling, how we're feeling in our bodies, right? If you have a stomach ache, you clutch your stomach. If you have a headache, you clutch your head, right? Rub your temples, stub your toe, right? You hold your toe to make it feel better. Right, so that there are ways that our body, when we listen to it, will naturally try to help us, right, to calm us, to soothe us, to heal us. And so this is a great way of being able to bring your attention to your body and listen to its cues. So you'll start at your feet. And as you work your way up, you just notice, right? It's a really intuitive practice. There's a lot of words here, right? Intuitively, you'll know. You start at your toes, what comes next, right? Like you'll work your way up. So don't look at this and feel like really overwhelmed. Like you have to remember every part of the body here. And then you also have to notice all the things that are happening: warm, cold, tingling, resistance, discomfort, whatever it is. It will naturally show up, right? You'll notice as you go all the way up through your body, you'll notice where you're carrying tension. You'll notice if things feel warm or if they feel cold or if they're tingling, right? You'll notice if you start to fidget, if you feel like you want to come out of it, right? Just encourage yourself to stay for the entirety of the body scan until you all get to the very top of your head. And even when you're there, once you finally made it to the top of your head, just take a couple of breaths and then come back to your body, open up your eyes, and continue on. Okay, so mindfulness and movement. So here we're playing around with energizing the body as well as restoring the body, right? As well as relaxing through the body. And so there's a couple of different things that we can do. I've gone through and I'll just go to the next slide and show you actually. And noted a couple of poses. I've noted them both sitting and standing, right? So if you're at home and you have a little bit more space, then you can stand up and do these movements. If you're seated and you don't have a lot of space around you, you're in an office or whatever kind of setting, then you can do it in your sitting space as well. So let's try it seated, just because that's probably the one that applies to most people here. So you're going to want to scoot your chair back a little bit because you will be folding forward. And of course, you don't want to smack your head on your desk. So push yourself back enough. And then if you're sitting on your chair and your feet completely touch the ground, great. If they don't, shift around in your seat a little bit. Bring your hips a little bit forward so that you can fully lay your feet right down onto the ground. And then here, again, take a moment here. Get still through your body. If there's any jitters that you need to get out, right, like flush them out. Take your hands together. And we'll just start by taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. On your next breath in, reach your arms all the way up. And you might notice if you feel really tense in your shoulders probably hunched up as well. If you can, with your breath, try to lower them back down. Right, so your fingertips stay nice and straight up towards the ceiling, but your shoulders have dropped away from your ears. Take a breath here. And then gently fold forward here. So your feet should be about hip width distance, so you have some space to be able to come all the way down. And here you can also drop your head right down. You can shake it yes. You can shake it no. You can let your hands just gently lay down on the ground beneath you. And it feels really, really nice here. You'll feel like a lengthening through your whole spine, and gravity will sort of gently work with you to let that go. On your next breath in, gently lift up halfway so that your back is flat. And then again, fold forward all the way down. Let your hands come down to the ground. And then gently bring yourself all the way back up to a seated position. Feet firm on the ground, roll your shoulders back and down. And you can do this anywhere from 3 to 6 times. Right? And it'll just sort of energize through your body. It also cues up the parasympathetic nervous system, and it opens your heart up as well, right? It allows for there to be a little bit more space for breath. And when there's space for breath, there's space for a lot more. And then of course you can also do it standing. And there's a little diagram here of how to do that. This is called the half sun A. For a full sun A, it also involves high planks and low planks. I took those out. Right, so that you just have to do the standing, the folding, the halfway, the fold, back to standing again. And then however many times it works for you. And then we come to the more restorative poses. So again, for ragdoll, there's an example here of someone standing in ragdoll and someone who's seated in ragdoll. It's very similar to the forward fold that you would have just experienced in our half sun A. You just stay there a little bit longer and your feet are spread out a little bit wider. And you can also hold on to your elbows with each hand. And again, this will help you to elongate through your spine, right? To be able to work with gravity and to release any tension from your shoulders, right? Like just let it slide right off your shoulders here. And you can find too that with every breath that you take here, especially with your exhales, like ground into your feet, let stuff go off of your back. And take as many breaths here as you need. For some other restorative poses, these ones do require a little bit more space. Legs up the wall is incredibly relaxing. So the goal here is you get as close to the wall as you possibly can, and then let your legs come up against the wall. And this also restores the blood flow towards your heart, right? We spend a lot of time on our feet pumping, working against gravity. And here's an opportunity to allow the blood to flow back towards your heart. It also feels really, really nice on your low back. Some people also like to take a little bit of a block or a pillow and just slide it right underneath your sacrum, right where your bottom meets your back, for a little bit of extra support. And all you have to do when you're there is just stay there and breathe. And then the other one here that we have is rock pose. Right, so you just come on to your knees. Take a deep bow towards the floor. And you'll press your hands a little bit into the floor. And as you do that, that will also help to bring your shoulders together on your back and to get lots of length through your body. And you just hang out here, right? Hang out here however it's comfortable for you. So intention. Intention is a really, really powerful part of developing your practice. And I love this quotation. So intention is more than wishful thinking, it's willful direction, right? So set your sights on what it is that you want to have happen, right? How is it that you want to feel today, right? And then you can set that intention for various different things, right? You can have an intention for your day, set an affirmation for your day. Today will be, or today I will accomplish, or today I will feel, and then fill in that blank. So you can set it for your day. You can set an intention for any projects that you have coming up. You can set intention for the relationships with your colleagues, for your mindfulness practice. All right, so take the opportunity to create an intention for yourself, something that you want to have happen, some way that you want to feel. And then where your intention goes, your energy flows. Right? So if you have that thing in mind of how you want to feel or what you want to have accomplished, then all of your actions then contribute to that. And intentions help you to maintain that kind of integrity around what you want your practice to be, around what your affirmation is for that day. And it gives you some guidance as to how to act upon that. All right, some mindfulness tips and tricks. So mindfulness is a practice, right? It's going to take some time to set up and establish what works for you. There are a whole bunch of suggestions here, right? Some of them are ones that we went over in person today. Some of them are ones that I'm going to leave you with that are not difficult at all and do not take a lot of time. But again, like there's that litmus test. If you look at something or we experience something today and you're kind of like hard pass on that one, then find something that does work for you. And then maybe as you develop that practice, you'll be open to a couple more things as you flex that muscle more, right? There is no one size fits all. It's going to take some time for you to figure out what works for your body and what works for you. Give yourself permission to do it. This I find is one of the trickiest parts and one of the biggest blocks is that people feel like they know they should be doing it, but they're not sure about how to incorporate it into their day. And they'll often say things like, I'll get to it when, right? Or if I finish X, Y, Z, then I'll have some mindfulness. Then I'll sit down and take a few moments for myself, right? So give yourself permission to make this a priority, right? Set your intention and then let go of the expectations around it, right? That it has to be at a certain time, that it has to be for a certain amount of time. You have to be sitting in a particular way, right? Allow yourself to just have the intention of creating the practice and letting that practice show up in a way that's organic for you. Listen to your body, right? Anytime that you have a sigh, a yawn, right? Maybe that's time to incorporate some movement. Maybe you skip the coffee and do some movement. And there's probably the litmus test right there, right? Like there's probably someone like, does she just like get rid of the afternoon coffee? Hard pass on that. Great, whatever works for you. You could do both. So listen to your body for the cues that are there, right? Listen to your body for when it's time to move, right? When you feel tense through your shoulders, roll them back and down, do a body scan. You can set a timer for yourself, right? It doesn't have to be a particular amount of time. You can set your timer for 2 minutes and say, I'm just going to close my door, right? Take this time for myself just for 2 minutes, close my eyes, come to stillness, focus my attention on one thing. And then when that timer goes off, you've done it. You can schedule your mindfulness, right? So work it into your day. First thing in the morning, I know some people, as soon as they get up in the morning, they set their timer, they sit at the edge of their bed, that's their time. Right? They get in the car, getting ready to go somewhere, inevitably waiting for the kids who take forever to get all their stuff together. Take that time, right? Or at the end of the day or during your lunch hour, go for a walk, right? Anything works. You can download apps. There's tons of different ones. Insight Timer is great. Headspace is great. So find ones that work for you. Find the things that you enjoy. And then you can find apps that go along with that. And then finally, incorporate mindfulness into activities that you're already doing, right? Especially if mindfulness is new for you, incorporate it into things that are part of your everyday life anyway. When I first started a practice of meditation, I would do it in the shower, right? It was something I was going to do anyway. It was a time that I was finally alone, right? So I could just spend time there and just concentrate on the water and how it feels and the warmth, and it's wonderful. I highly recommend this strategy. It's great. But work it into other chores and things that you're doing around the house anyway, which is a great segue into the tricks because that's where some of these will show up. So we had talked about having our observational mind. We talked about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding method. So using your senses to bring you into the present moment. We had talked about breath. We have talked about doing the body scan as well. Another thing that you can do while you're listening to the intuition of your body is to give yourself a self massage. Right, so start from the top of your head and work all the way down. You can even close your eyes and just really tune into the parts of your body that are feeling any kind of stress, tension, resistance, right? And then work your way through your body, right? There's a lot of power in physical touch. The finger meditation. This one is really simple and very effective and hardly takes any time at all. If you don't have a lot of time, I highly recommend this one. All it involves is taking your finger, so raise up your pointer finger, and then you're going to take a breath in and gently bring your finger down and curl it up. And then as you exhale, bring it back up. Breathe in, tuck it down and under. Exhale, back up. right? And all you have to do is just watch your finger, right? That's your single point of focus here, is just watch it curl and uncurl. And then there's ways of incorporating mindfulness again into the things that you're doing anyway. So mindful eating, right? You're having your lunch break, maybe you're snacking on almonds or something, right? Pay attention to the way that you're eating. Pay attention to what it looks like. Pay attention to the texture. Pay attention to how it feels when you put it in your mouth, when you chew, right? What parts of your body are involved as you swallow. So that would be mindful eating. Mindful movement we talked about as well could be the sun A's. It could be as simple as just taking some stretches. Mindful music as well. I would recommend, if you're going the route of mindful music, try not to pick any music that you know really well or that has lyrics, because inevitably, I mean, you'll end up having a dance party, which is also fine, but it will be a little bit harder for you to actually be present, right? If you're anticipating what the words are. So classical music can be great for this as well, and just have it on in the background, or take some time, close your eyes, come to stillness, and just listen to the music, listen to the instruments, listen to the rhythm. Closing your eyes can be really, really powerful, right? Just closing your eyes, shutting off all of that external response, right? The things that we see that take our attention away, just bring it inward, right? Close your eyes and take a couple of breaths. If it's possible for you, try taking your breaks away from your workspace, right? Keep your workspace for your work and take your break somewhere else, right? Just to have that actual physical divide between the areas where you experience those two things. And with the weather changing now, it's great to be able to get outside. And if you do get outside, or when you get outside, try leaving your phone behind, right? You can go for a walking meditation, right? Just walk, see the things, listen to things, right? What do you see in your path? How do you feel when you walk on the ground? You can use the tool of affirmations, right? Affirmations as intentions. And you can go different places. There are apps for this as well, for you to establish an affirmation for yourself. And it can be something as simple as, today I'm going to be happy, right? Or today my goal is to find confidence. My goal is to use courage. Right? So set an affirmation for yourself and then hold yourself with that integrity in those actions around that affirmation. And then finally, household mindfulness, right? So if there are things that you're doing anyway, like you're rushing all over the house, there's no time, you're getting dinner ready, whatever, literally watch water boil. I have done this one before too, right? Like you set the oven and you watch for the little bubbles to pop up, and that is your point of focus. You can watch paint dry, you can watch dishes dry, right? You can actually like take the time and then look at what you're doing, right? Like I am washing this dish, it is glass, it is blue, it is whatever. And then take in every part of what it is that you're doing consciously, how your body is responding to handling it, right? And then you can also do the same thing with folding laundry. Right? This is a shirt, it's blue. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to crease out all the lines. I'm going to fold it in half again. I'm going to place it over here, right? Like talk yourself through the motions of what you're doing. And then there's also the mindfulness shower, which is fantastic and highly recommended. So like I had mentioned before, this is a practice, right? It is called a practice. It's not called the way. Right? It's not like there's one way to be able to get to this practice that you call your own. It is really about that self-discovery and what works for you. And then giving yourself permission to do it and setting your intention around completing it. And that's about it, I think.
Lauren, thank you so very much. I have to say we have done a year of webinars, and a little bit more probably than a year now. And we seldom have, never have done intentional breathing, body scans, or scalp massages at the same time. So we really do appreciate your thoughtfulness and your approach to mindfulness, which I think is so critically important during this time. we're moving into our question and answer period of time. And if I could encourage all our attendees, there's two ways to ask your questions. One of them is right beside your name, there's a hand function. If you click on that, we will make sure to turn the mic over to you and you can ask the question live. The second option is the chat function, which most of you are probably familiar with. It's a field, it's usually at the bottom of your screen where you can type in the question and we can see it, and we'll do our best to answer it. But we've also had a number of questions coming in via email, social media, or other ways, and we're trying to get to all of them. And I thought maybe just to start the dialogue, Lauren, I'll start out with one of them. And I think this is actually an important one. And there was a question that came in: what are the warning signs that we might actually need to practice mindfulness? I think we do need to practice it, and we need to give the commitment, but sometimes we move away from it a little bit. We get busy in everyday life. We get busy in tasks that we have, urgent matters that need our attention or that we perceive to be urgent. What are some of the signs that kind of can tell us, you know what, maybe this is a good time to do a body scan or to breathe intentionally, to take some time off?
Absolutely. That is a great question. And a lot of it really is very intuitive. And some things will show up. It's a lot of reading the signs of your body naturally, right? If you are yawning a lot, right? If you are feeling like there's sort of a lack of energy, if you're feeling like your mind cannot stop racing, right? Then those are great signs that it's time to just take a moment and slow down. If you're feeling overwhelmed, right? If you have that moment of like, if somebody asks me thing, I'm going to snap, right? Those are all really good signs that it may be time, right, to listen to your body and see what you might need. And just close. It can be as simple as just closing your eyes for a moment, taking a couple of breaths.
That sounds, and that helps. I'm trying to get to one or two that are in the chat right now. So first of all, I think Lauren had indicated that we will actually share the presentation with all participants today. So it will be emailed to you directly. And then Paula is also asking, can you please repeat the recommended smartphone apps that are there? And I know that there's a few of them because I'm familiar with the one with the senses. That is a very popular one. But if there's one or two that you would want to share, and then again, we'll make sure to share those links to those apps as well in our follow-up email.
Yes, absolutely. That's great. So one is called Insight Timer. And the other I mentioned is called Headspace.
Perfect. So excellent. And what we'll do is we'll find links to both of them and include them in the follow-up. How do you stay inspired to practice mindfulness? And this is a question coming from Laura for you.
That's another really great question. I love these questions. I find I'm just in a literally a different headspace when I practice it versus when I don't. And the inspiration comes from feeling the results. And that's the nice thing, is that it really is immediate and effective, right? I know I'm different when I wake up in the morning and I take that time for myself. And sometimes I'll do a 10-minute meditation. Sometimes I'll just lay there and do a body scan for like a couple of seconds, right? Just go all the way up. And so I find the inspiration because I'm doing it on a regular basis, and I feel a difference in my body, and I feel a difference in the way that I interact with people. I have more patience, and I'm able to, as I practice more and more, I'm able to take those moments of presence more fully and more frequently. And there was something else I was going to say, and I lost my train of thought on it, ironically enough.
No, but it does make sense. A couple of years ago, I read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. And just while you are, and just over this last year, actually during the pandemic, I started reading it again. And it's so interesting. In my office here, there's one wall. And on this one wall over the last 15 years, we've written different quotes on it. My kids have, I have different drawings and everything else. And one of the ones that is at the top of it is one of Eckhart Tolle's, and is saying that being one with life is being one with now. In the present time. And I think there's a lot of good teaching that comes out of that aspect of it. Here's a question from Omnia. How often should I practice mindfulness to reduce anxiety?
Another great question. You know, it's really up to everybody's own, your own feelings about it. And you may find as you go through that, because some of them are really simple, if you have a moment to spare to be able to do it, even if it's a few minutes or even a few seconds just to take that time, then do it. I would say try for every day, even if you set your timer for 2 minutes. Start with 2 minutes every day, if you can. Yep. And especially if you struggle with how to incorporate it, then try it in the shower, try it when you're folding laundry, try it when you're doing things that are already part of your routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. One of the things I was reminded by listening to you, and I thought of it, and because as a chamber, we deal with a lot of employers, we deal with a lot of employees and managers, and often from department heads or employers, there comes a question, how can we implement these things in our workplaces? And you work with a lot of workplaces, with a lot of employers. What are ways that employers, managers can integrate that with their team, and especially also employees? I know we can individually do something and practice it, but how do we create that culture of mindfulness?
That's a really great question too. Well, you could always talk to us, our business, but another thing that you can do is encourage check-ins with people. So even if you're having team meetings, right, and you want to throw out a question of how do you practice mindfulness today, or what might be an affirmation for you today, you can set the tone in that in your meetings with people. And I would say that's a good way to start things as well. If anytime you're having any kind of meeting together where people are coming together and there's already that sort of sense of community and connection, then take advantage of that opportunity and ask people questions about and either they'll share what their experience is, or they'll have the opportunity to learn from somebody else, right? There's that test again of what's going to work for me and what doesn't, and maybe somebody has a suggestion and then that person can take something that works for them out of that.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to us to really be intentional about it as well. And I think we often forget about it because we're so task focused, and especially in this reality. Just before we had this particular Lunch and Learn webinar, we had a team meeting again on Zoom, and we were like going through the list of things that we needed to do, check on, have you followed up here, have you done that? And really finding time for it, I think is critical.
Yes.
This is a question that has come in from Audie Peel, and they're asking how best to handle the stress of those working at home while you're in the office relating messages to them all day. So that's again the split. We're not in the same room anymore. We can't deal with some of the things that are coming up. All we're doing is relating messages back and forth. How can we best handle that stress that comes out of those situations?
Yeah, and that is a very stressful situation. It's stressful for both parties, right? Mm-hmm. There are a few things I would suggest. One is it's very difficult to know how to handle somebody else's stress, right? It's very difficult to understand what's going to work for other people. So by all means, take the information that's here today and please do share it with them to see if there's something that resonates with them. And it could also be, depending on what your relationship is with these people and what your role is with these people, there could be an opportunity for a discussion that's not in such a high energy situation of relaying messages, and take time specifically with that person to do a check-in. Yeah. And then keep those two spaces separate, right?
And I also think that, part of a team, or if you are, especially in a managerial or others, is to speak about it, I think makes a big difference. That you actually give permission for this topic to be raised and brought up, while still most definitely honoring the each individual's person's space and their right to privacy and others. But I think to make it, the awareness has increased over the last couple of years, and I think now even during the pandemic we speak about more often than not, and I think it's a good thing to that is taking place.
Absolutely.
Our minds are racing at all times, and this is a question that comes from Diane again, is saying, like, if you have 2 tips to saying, how can I get my mind to stop racing? And when it races, it doesn't race with many positive things often. It's often with many critical, negative things that are often geared at oneself. I haven't done this, could have done this better, and so on. What's one or 2 ways to overcome this?
Yeah, the rabbit hole, right? We've all been there, and it is a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. I would suggest looking at things with your observational mind rather than the emotional mind. And it could be that you're looking at the situation in particular. It could be you're literally looking at a water bottle, right? Like, take a moment, take things and see what is actually fact, and then separate the story from it, separate the perception from it, the emotion from it, and just focus on that thing. And in fact, I would start there. I would start by not looking at the situation itself that's causing you so much stress and causing your mind to race. notice how you can focus on one thing, because when you can apply it there and see how you do it there, then it also helps to train your mind to apply it to other situations that are more fraught with energy and emotion.
Yeah, no, it makes full sense. One of the things that you spoke to in your presentation was about stating intentions. More than wishful thinking, it's willful directions that are there. But I think when it comes to intention, there's probably good examples and bad examples. So if I would tell you that one of my intentions or willful directions that I wish my life to go in is maybe to say I want to buy a villa in Tuscany or Provence and live there forever after I won a lottery. And that could be one, maybe it's likely a very bad example, an example for a very bad intention that is there. But I think we get caught in intentions and then we get disappointed by maybe saying that my intentions, however good and positive they are not coming to fruition. And this one about the villa in Tuscany or Provence is maybe just about my life, but often we are making intentions about other people's life. Asking intentions to saying like, I want you to treat me that, or I want you to open the door for me for this next opportunity that is there. And it sets us up for disappointment. And so I was wondering if you can give us some examples of maybe good intentions after I've just given you some really bad ones.
They're not really bad. And in fact, I think it's such a great distinction that you made. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. Because I wouldn't say necessarily that there are good intentions and bad intentions. I think when we have an intention to do something, when we purposely put our attention onto something, we're doing it for a good reason, right? It is something that we want, it is something that we crave, it is something that we deserve. I think what ends up sometimes getting people tripped up in it is that you have the idea for the intention, but there's also these little strings that are maybe unidentified that are expectations of how the intention will come to be, right? And it can be a really tricky thing and a practice, again, to have the intention and everything that you're working towards is part of that intention, but it may show up in a way that you're not expecting. So try to release the expectations around the intention that you set.
And what role then do vision boards play at this point? Because they're often closely linked to intentions or saying like, this is how we see our life evolving in some ways. We have them close to us, or some of us do, we utilize them. We often utilize them also for our career path at the same time. What role do they play?
Yes, absolutely. Well, visualization is a really powerful technique, right? That, and I think there've been a whole bunch of studies about this as well. There was one that I remember someone telling me about basketball players. I'm going to mess it up. I don't remember what league it was or whatever, but someone had mentioned that there was a group of people who visualized making the three-pointers. Yikes. Visualize making three-pointers. Thank you. Yeah. And then other people who just went for it, right? And the people who visualized actually being able to put it into the net and sinking it, those were the ones that were more successful in doing it. So vision boards are fantastic. And it's great to have that kind of mapped out. The other thing I would say with vision boards is, again, if there's expectations of how you're going to get to that point, feel free to change your vision board, right? If there is something else, because we're in flux all the time, right? Our lives are very dynamic. And so things and opportunities may come up and may arise. And maybe instead of looking at the individual parts of the vision board, what is the overall intention of the vision board, right? Like what is the biggest goal that is represented there? And can you remove some of the expectations around it and then adapt where necessary?
Yeah, and I think this is an excellent point, because I think as a team, we need to also have that. I mean, we don't call it within workplaces usually like a vision board, but I think it's the overall goal and the intention of saying like, this is what we truly are aiming for. These are the changes we would like to see.
Yes.
And that I think is helpful.
And that was part of too, there was, and I thank Laura for that. I just saw her name pop up as well. And there was something I had said earlier about around intentions. How is it that you want to feel?
Yes.
And what is it that you want to have happen?
Yeah.
Right. So those are the overarching things. So thank you, Laura, for that.
Yeah, thank you for that in the chat too. Another question that has come to us: how do I deal with negativity, especially when it comes to failures that we, or areas or experiences that we consider to be failures? Maybe someone else doesn't, but we personally have, and they leave us with this negativity. How do we deal with that?
Mm. Sometimes it depends on how that information comes in. If it's information that, because often it's our own perception, right? Like, I have done something wrong. I have let someone down. I did not succeed in this way. And again, that can be your own perspective tainting the lens of what actually has happened, right? What is actual fact. And I think to give yourself a lot of grace, right? And a lot of compassion, that while, again, the expectation may not be there, it may not feel as though you've succeeded in this particular way, or it may feel that there's a whole bunch of roadblocks, that it could actually still be that you're still going to get to wherever it is that you want to go. And this may not actually be all that negative, right? This might just be something that brings your awareness and your attention to something that otherwise would have remained unnoticed. That's a very vague kind of answer, because it really depends on how, where the information is coming from and how you're internalizing it. But generally, I think that can kind of be applied.
Yeah, no, it makes full sense. And I think this is the last question. I'm looking at the time, but one that has was submitted to us. And how do we deal with loneliness? And especially as we have replaced our daily interactions with coworkers to working from home, working more in isolation, all of our interactions are more isolated than they have been in beforehand. How do we deal with that, and where does mindfulness play a role in that?
Mm-hmm. Wow, great question. Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. I mean, the nice thing about mindfulness is that it really is about you. So it is an opportunity to connect in with yourself and to see yourself and spend time with yourself. The purpose of it really is to be recognizing who you are, where you are. So it is in and of itself actually a really great practice when you are lonely, because it is almost like there's a permission in there to be alone, right? To take that time for yourself. And to treat yourself, right? Like, do something. If there's something in here that feels good to you, if you're feeling lonely and it helps you to get out of the house and go for a walk, right? And see things that are around and see life around, then you could try that. And then if there's another way too, you could look into guided meditations, right? So it might be helpful for somebody else to lead you through an experience of mindfulness.
Yeah. And I think it makes a difference. Lauren, we're coming close to the end of it. I usually give the panelist, the speaker, a 30 seconds, a minute for some closing comments. And I thought I would love you to maybe wrap it up, and then I'll give the last closing comments after that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody who's here today. And I know this is a lot of information, so by all means, feel free to revisit the recording anytime that you like. It's hard to know when there's not people live to know if I'm going too fast or too slow. So I do hope that you got something out of today. One thing that I would like to mention too before we wrap up is this idea of giving yourself permission to carve out the time to do this. It doesn't have to look like anything in particular. It's whatever fits for you. And sometimes there can be this idea that to be still is to be idle, and they're not the same thing. Take the time, slow yourself down, spend time with yourself, love yourself while you're doing that. And then see just the only expectation to have is just to see if you can just bring your attention to one thing, right? Slow down and breathe and focus your attention one place.
Lauren, thank you so very much for being with us over this lunch hour. It has been the best lunch hour of the last little while for me personally. So you've left me hopeful and also encouraged. The importance of mindfulness and compassion towards ourselves and others has to become more embedded as we're trying to find meaning in our shared experiences and in these times that we have. So really, thanks from all of us and from my colleagues as well. Today's seminar was and has been made possible by the Ymca Employment and Newcomer Services of Niagara. And it also has been recorded and will be available on our website at gncc.ca, and it will be emailed to all attendees and participants directly. If you have any questions or would like to get in touch with us directly, we can always be reached at info@gncc.ca. And lastly, breathe. Let go and remind yourself that this very moment is the only one you know you have for sure. So thank you for being with us, and have a wonderful rest of the day.